Hello friends! Today's video is going to be really exciting because we're going to explore some of the strangest things ever left on the moon. Things you probably can't even imagine. Yes, that's right. Over the years, astronauts have left behind all sorts of unusual items during their missions. Some of them will truly surprise you. So without any delay, let's get started with today's video. A family photograph. In 1972, Apollo 16 astronaut Charles Duke left something very personal on the moon, a small family photo. The picture, sealed in plastic, showed Duke with his wife Dorothy and their two sons, Charles and Thomas. On the back, he wrote, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from planet Earth who landed on the moon on April 20th, 1972. He placed the photo at the Apollo 16 landing site in the Descartes Highlands. Today, more than 50 years later, the extreme heat and cold on the moon have probably caused the photo to fade, but the memory of the gesture still remains. Golf balls. Only 12 astronauts have walked on the moon, but Apollo 14 Commander Alan Shepard is the only one who played golf there. He brought a 6-iron head and 2 golf balls. Using a tool handle as a club, Shepard swung one-handed in his stiff spacesuit. The first ball landed in a crater, but the second went much further. He joked that it flew miles and miles, though later studies showed it actually went about 40 yards. NASA allowed the stunt as long as it wasn't used for advertising, so the ball's brand is still a mystery. Tiny goodwill disc holding message for humanity. During the Apollo 11 mission, the astronauts carried with them a small but meaningful artifact, a silicon disc no larger than a $50 coin. Etched onto it using microscopic engraving were goodwill messages from 4 U.S. presidents: Dwight Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Richard Nixon. President Nixon's words captured the spirit of the mission. The journeying of the astronauts is more than a technical achievement. It is a reaching out of the human spirit. It lifts our sights. It demonstrates that magnificent conceptions can be made real. They inspire us, and at the same time, they teach us true humility. But the disc didn't just carry American voices. It also contained messages from the leaders of 73 nations around the globe, written in their own languages, congratulating the astronauts and expressing hope for worldwide peace. Protected inside an aluminum capsule, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin placed this tiny but powerful symbol of unity on the moon's Sea of Tranquility. Alongside it, the Apollo 11 lander carried a plaque that read, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." In the middle of the Cold War, these objects served as a reminder that the moon landing was more than just a victory in a space race. It was a milestone for all humanity. 96 bags of human waste with potentially surviving bacteria. The very first photo Neil Armstrong snapped after setting foot on the moon unexpectedly captured a rather unglamorous object, a discarded waste bag likely filled with human feces. This was just one of 96 such bags that Apollo astronauts left scattered on the lunar surface during 6 missions. Since the Apollo spacecraft had no toilets, astronauts used a very primitive setup, plastic bags taped to their bodies for collecting feces. The system was far from perfect, and accidents did happen. In fact, during Apollo 10, astronaut Tom Stafford famously shouted in a moment of panic, "Give me a napkin, quick! There's a turd floating through the air," according to NASA's transcripts. When it came time to return home, astronauts had to make room for their precious cargo of moon rocks. To reduce weight, they jettisoned bags of urine, vomit, and feces onto the lunar surface. Decades later, those bags remain intact, preserved by the moon's harsh environment. What once seemed like waste has now caught the attention of astrobiologists. Researchers wonder whether the hardy microbes from human feces could have survived in a dormant state or even mutated over more than 50 years. If so, these lunar latrines might hold valuable clues about the survival of life in extreme conditions, and even about whether life could spread between planets. Neil Armstrong's boots. When Armstrong set foot on the moon on July 20th, 1969, he famously said, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." The boots that made those iconic steps were left behind on the moon for practical reasons. They were deliberately trying to lose mass because they were very limited in fuel to get back off the lunar surface, says Chris Impey, a professor of astronomy at the University of Arizona. Even going into the missions, they knew they were going to discard a lot of things. The boot prints, however, remain intact, as there's no wind or atmosphere on the moon to disturb them. Eventually, the prints will be buried under lunar soil displaced by meteorite impacts in a very slow process, says Burns, one that will take at least a few million years. For more ceremonial purposes, Apollo 11 astronauts planted a U.S. flag in the moon's soil. While it was blown over by rocket exhaust when they left, each subsequent moon landing mission continued the tradition. These flags do not represent territorial claims on the moon, but are merely symbolic gestures, according to NASA.